Welcome back to On the Tee on this September 15th, 2010. A spectacular day right here in the greater Des Moines area. Do a little golfing. Looks like you'll be able to get a chance to get out this weekend as well. And that little promo we just had from Sugar Creek, our good buddy Jim Webb, you can now go out there and call Judd Gibb for lessons. Do you have the phone number there in front of you, my friend?
I do. And that kind of shocks you that I'd have be prepared like that, isn't it?
It is astonishing. It's a promo and a golf pro realizing that he needs to use the marketing skills that we have it on the tee.
Thank you.
The number is
515-987-5247. And maybe, Mike, you should come out. I only charge you half price.
I appreciate that very much.
I'll pay to watch.
And Robert Vanscoy, we have done some good promotions for you. And I just gave you the great
Yes, you did.
testimonial from a guy that probably has a golf game a lot like mine. All right, we digress. Let's get to some serious golf. We're always very fortunate that he takes time out of his busy schedule. I just watched him at 5 o'clock on the Golf Channel. Another great segment. However, Alex, last week we had Kelly Tillman on, and you've got some defending to do when you see her. She was kind of astonished that we told her that you went to Drake and you were a Saluki, and she didn't realize you had a college education, she said.
Well, I didn't believe, I don't think she can read. She has to memorize. Let me just tell you right now, everybody uses teleprompters but her because they have to be talking in her ear while she's spitting it back out.
Well, I watched your little segment, and I might as well dive right into that. You're lobbying. You feel that Dustin Johnson is the candidate for Player of the Year at this point in time, huh?
Well, it was only between the two, Dustin and Matt Kuchar. Personally, I think that anybody of a group of about 5 or 6, if they win the Tour Championship and actually win the FedEx Cup, are going to win. So, as an example, if Stricker wins, it'll be his 3rd win. He'll have 3 wins on the PGA Tour, and he'll have the FedEx Cup. I think in that case, that would be him. So, I think anybody, Kuchar, Stricker, Dustin Johnson, Ernie Els, Phil Mickelson. Any one of those guys wins. I think that you'd have to be hard pressed because they got 3 wins this year, and I do agree that there's been very little, if any, separation between a whole bunch of guys. So it's a little disappointing. But yet on the other hand, in a what seems to be a post-Tiger accident era, you're going to find that, I think.
Well, it is kind of funny, Alex, that for years, it was a foregone conclusion. Tiger won everything; he was going to be Player of the Year, and we wanted. Maybe some parity, and even though we got it in a different way, now it's kind of like almost boring to a certain extent.
Well, let's back up for a second. Golf inherently is not necessarily the most exciting sport on the planet. Maybe if actually you use the clubs for something other than hitting the ball, then it could be more exciting. But I think we're still adjusting to how we want this all to go now. And the other thing about this is the playoff system is not necessarily 100% good either. I think if you tweak that and do some other tweaks here and there, I think it would work. And that's with Tiger in the mix or without Tiger in the mix. If you look back in the first year of the playoffs, only 3 guys got into the top 30 that started the playoffs outside the top 30. This year we had 8. It's a pretty big difference. And so the question is that what you want? Do you want this inherent parity? You want this volatility in the playoff system, or do you want something less than that? And if you get something less than that, then you can have a little more, probably a more separation because you're going to be focused on the same guys more than you are now. Look, the fact that we spent time talking about Kevin Streelman over the last 3 weeks is a huge surprise considering the guy was outside the top 100 to begin with. So, I think that's part of the issue too, and it's a lot of different things going on.
Well, it would be kind of interesting with the way Matt Kuchar's been playing. There'd be some symmetry to it that if he came in and won, this week, he kind of, as he did with the U.S. Amateur when he won after Tiger won all those U.S. Amateurs, he was kind of the next guy. We thought from his amateur career that he would, take off from right there. It's taken a while, but there'd be some symmetry to him winning this week.
Yeah, I think there would be. If he wasn't sick last week, he may have won at BMW. It's exactly where he won his U.S. Amateur. And he knows the golf course, even though it's been changed a little by Reese Jones. It's still, it's still the same routing and so forth and so on. So he's familiar with the place. But I think that Matt Kuchar personally has had an unbelievable year. And if you go all the way back to Bob Hope, when he lost to Bob Hope, it wasn't because he didn't do the right things or didn't play well. I mean, he went for a par 5 and 2, hit it over the green, and it was just a difficult chip back, and he didn't make the putt. He ended up making a 5 instead of a 4. And Tim Clark, who was right after him, did a similar thing, except for instead of going for the green in 2, at a similar yardage, a little over 200 yards, he decided to lay up and then hits a bad wedge shot, and then he doesn't win either. So I think that Matt Kuchar did everything he needed to do to win the Hope, but didn't win the Hope. And then after that, the other top 10s, I think there's 10 more top 10s out of that group. Some of the times he had a chance to win, some of the times he backdoored in. Either way, he was very, very consistent. His scoring average, everything. If you look at the stats, he's so consistent. You know, he's probably one of the shorter guys in comparison to the guys that are up on the board, but he's just incredibly consistent. And I mean, what else are you asking for? I mean, golf. If you're a golf pro, you know what you're asking for is your swing to repeat. You're asking for consistency, and that's exactly what Matt Kuchar is.
We're talking to Alex Micelli from the Golf Channel here on the Tee on the Iowa Sports Connection Radio Network. I'm going to shift gears on you now and talk a little Ryder Cup since we haven't had you on for a few weeks. Your opinion of the U.S. team and their chances over in Wales, and we have not won since 1993 across the pond.
Well, better than they were before Monty made his picks. I think when Monty made his picks, he opened the door a little. And, I mean, how do you leave the number 8 player in the world off your team, even if you don't like him, even if you think that he is kind of difficult at times? How do you leave him off the team? And then on top of that, how do you leave a guy that won at, let me think, Memorial and Aronimink, okay? 2 unbelievably great golf courses in this country. Very hard. You know, you have to really show up to win those golf courses. It's not like winning the Bob Hope or you know, the Travelers Championship. And you leave both those guys off your team, and in turn you pick one guy that hasn't won all year and has really had a struggle. One guy who you had no choice, you had to pick in Molinari because, I mean, there's just no way. I mean, the guy goes up, he shows up, he wins. And then you pick Luke Donald, who I understand, and I didn't really know this until after the fact, that all the players on the European team really liked and really wanted on the team. So, you know, if there's one guy that you have to take a serious look at was Harrington. Even though I like Harrington a lot, he just played like a dog this year. So that means you got him on your team versus Casey or Rose. In turn, you know, we have a pretty strong team, and the guys I think we picked, even the Ricky Fowler pick, I think we're a much better picked team than Monty is. But yet we still have things to overcome, and we have to see how it goes. But you know, does Monty know how to be captain? He certainly knew how to play in a Ryder Cup, but does he know how to be a captain? And that I'm not sure about.
Well, and that's the interesting thing about not picking Paul Casey. It's a match play event, and Paul Casey is, well, I don't know if I'd say has dominated match play events, but he certainly played well at Wentworth and in the match play here.
Yeah, well, I guess that just kind of slipped on Monty's radar screen because he just I'm not sure what the deal. Well, I do know what the deal is. Partly, I think there's many different theories on it. I should say one is the fact that, you know, Casey just doesn't meld with Monty and some of the people that Monty has. Second, there's this anti-American bias of these guys that played in the United States and don't play as much in Europe. And Casey and Rose don't play as much in Europe right now. There is also a question if their game is more Americanized, and that's possible because they're, you know, hit the ball higher in the air and all this other stuff. But if you've been to Celtic Manor, and Monty sure has been there because he designed the place, it's a American golf course stuck in the middle of Wales.
Yeah,
so, I mean, that should not make a difference. So, that all being said, I just think that Monty gave us a chance. And we have to actually deliver, which means we have to make putts, we have to play well together and play nice with each other. And if we do all that, then we got a chance.
Speaking of playing nice with each other, how brutal do you think that they'll be over the European fan base with Tiger? You know, they're pretty calm for the British Open. Do you think that'll change because of the competitive nature of this event?
Yeah, I think that the event itself will lend itself to being a little different than you would have seen at the British Open. And, yeah, I think Tiger's going to experience a little backlash, but, you know, you expect that. I mean, when you do the things that Tiger did and you're the number one player in the world and you're a huge athlete, you know, across the globe, you're going to experience a little more backlash when you do some of the things that he did. And so I think he's prepared for that. He's ready for that. And I think the American team is too, and I'm sure they'll support him because they're going to be teammates for at least those that week. And so I think all in all it'll be fine. It ought to be funny. There ought to be some classic lines out there. I'm looking forward to those.
Yeah. As far as pairings and stuff going, have you guys heard any inkling what some of the pairings may be?
No, I mean they're still talking amongst themselves. I would be shocked if Tiger isn't paired with Steve Stricker for most of the 2 days before singles. I would be surprised if Phil doesn't play with Dustin Johnson to some extent, and maybe possibly Ricky Fowler. I think those make sense. Then after that, it kind of opens itself up. I think Stuart Sink is a bellwether for the team. I think he's going to be able to play with a lot of different guys. You're going to have to find somebody that's going to be able to make sure that Bubba Watson doesn't, urinate all over his leg, because the guy is going to be so excited he just won't know what to do with himself. So I mean, those are just some of the things that they have to figure out, and I think they will. I think the team is better now. I mean, Zach's on the team. Hunter Mahan is a strong player. I think there's a lot of good guys on that team. The only guy that's not playing his best right now, I think Overton is kind of struggling a little. But when I was talking to somebody the other day who knows him pretty well, he said, he's fine. He's okay. He's going to take some time off, and he's going to come in there, and he feels like he's hitting the ball better, and things are going the right direction. So I think we're going to go in pretty hot, but they're hot. Some of their guys are pretty hot as well. If you look at Keimer and Molinari and Jimenez, those guys are hot. Poulter played pretty well in Chicago. So they got some hot guys as well.
Hey, last question. Who do you think is going to be the comeback player of the year?
Oh, God, I have no idea. You could probably give it to Tiger next year. But this year is pretty tough.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there may not be one. I mean, they could give it to Stricker again. I mean, I don't know. They felt like they needed to give it to him 2 years in a row. Yeah. I'm not sure if there really is a per se comeback player of the year that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm a feeling one more. Well, as always, we know how busy you are, and we appreciate you joining us on the tee. It's always a pleasure, my friend. And give Kelly a bad time about those comments. She didn't realize you're one of us since you're a former Bulldog.
Well, I'm not going to give her a bad time. I'm just going to send a guy from Jersey after her.
All right. Have a great night,
With a
Alex.
sign.
Thanks.
Alex Micelli, always kind enough to join us here on the tee. You can see him on the Golf Channel. If you haven't seen him, he's the stat man, the bow tie wearing stat man. And he went to Drake University a couple times. Bobby played a little golf with him a couple summers ago.